August 216 BC. On this parched Italian field, the Roman Republic faced total annihilation. Over 50,000 men died in a single afternoon. It remains history's most perfect slaughter. To understand Cannae, we must go back to the start of the Second Punic War. He arrived like a thunderbolt, crushing Roman legions at the Trebia and Lake Trasimene.
The time for caution is over. We will crush this Carthaginian upstart with overwhelming force.
Hannibal is a wolf, Varro. If we rush into his jaws, we will not return. Rome raised the largest army in its history. 8 legions, 80,000 men. The Roman plan was simple: a massive, unstoppable push through the Carthaginian center. They come as I expected. Their strength will be their undoing. Hannibal placed his weakest troops in the center and his elite Libyans on the flanks. The Romans were packed so densely they could barely move their arms.
Soldiers of Rome, today we erase the memory of our defeats. Advance!
The massive machine of Rome began its slow, ponderous march toward the enemy. A storm of missiles met the Romans, but they did not flinch. The collision was horrific. The sounds of metal on bone echoed across the valley. Just as Hannibal ordered, the center began to give way. It looked like a Roman victory.
See! They break! Into the gap! Forward!
The Romans poured into the trap, thinking they were winning. They were actually being swallowed. Now, let the Libyans close the gate. On the flanks, the fresh African veterans turned. The trap was about to shut. The Roman legions were now hit from 3 sides. Panic began to spread through the ranks.
Stand your ground! Do not let the lines break!
The circle was complete. 80,000 Romans were surrounded by 40,000 Carthaginians.
There was no room to move, no room to fight, only room to die.
For hours, it was not a battle. It was an industrial-scale execution. The Romans fought until they were too exhausted to lift their arms.
Go, tell the Senate, Rome must be brave. My watch is over.
Consul Varro fled. He left his army to rot in the sun. When the news reached Rome, the city dissolved into absolute terror. Every family was in mourning. There were no more men left to defend the gates. Hannibal ad portas. Hannibal is at the gates. The cry echoed through history. Rome is a wounded beast, but it still has teeth. We wait. A new leader emerged. One who had studied Hannibal's genius at Cannae. 14 years later, the student would face the master on the plains of Zama. Cannae forced Rome to change. It turned a city-state into a world-conquering empire. Today, the field is quiet. But the ghost of Hannibal still lingers here. Military academies still study this day. It is the gold standard of the double-envelopment, the greatest military disaster in history. The day Rome almost died. Rome learned its lesson in blood. It would not fail again for 600 years. I was the storm. They were the rock. In the end, the rock remained. No victory is permanent. No defeat is final. This is the law of history. Every road, every law, and every city in the West was built on this sacrifice. He was Rome's greatest nightmare and its greatest teacher. Behind every artifact is a story of a soldier who stood his ground at Cannae. His army was a collection of nations, held together by one man's iron will. They thought they were invincible. They thought the gods were on their side.
By tonight, the Carthaginian threat will be nothing but a memory. The gods do not favor the arrogant, Varro. They favor the prepared.
The march to the field began in silence. A silence that would soon be shattered. For a moment, time stood still. Then, the world exploded. The first wave of death was cast. There was no turning back now. In the chaos, men became beasts. Survival was the only law. Hannibal's masterpiece was taking shape. The circle was almost closed. Communication failed. Leadership dissolved. The Roman machine was breaking.
They were trapped against the water. There was nowhere left to run.
By sunset, the Roman army had ceased to exist. Rome was defenseless. The news was a death sentence. Or so they thought. Rome found a strength it never knew it had. It refused to die. A new generation took the field, hardened by the ghost of Cannae. The disaster made the empire. It forged a resolve that would last centuries. His name is eternal. His victory, a lesson for every age. History is written in blood, and Cannae was its deepest ink.